Welcome to Good Portia, the podcast that uncovers the hidden treasures within grief. I'm your host, Portia the producer, and I'm inviting you to join me on a transformative journey where we will exchange laughter, of course, the best medicine of them all. Reflect on cherished memories. Remember that time that the little boy grabbed my hand instead of his mother's at the amusement park? Yikes. And of course, discover gratitude while navigating one of life's hardest challenges, loss. So get ready to groove with me, Portia the producer. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Good Portia. I am your host, Portia Booker, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep up with the latest and greatest of all with Grew with Portia. So this year marks 10 years since I embarked on my TV career. And as those of you who know, I've been sharing it for the last couple of episodes, that part of my story, I buried it because the dream job that I had as this big TV producer didn't go in the direction that I dreamed. And those of you who may recall, my life was almost ended as a result of my TV career ending. And I remember sitting on that hospital bed after my guardian angel saved me from suicide, where I remember this little voice in my head saying, there's more to Portia's life than this. I'm going to say that again. There's more to Portia's life than this. And how many of you out there have been on that same hospital bed, maybe not in the same room as me, but have heard that little voice to remind you that there's more to your life than what the current seat of occupancy may be showing for you? So today I have the honor of having a gentleman who is making a big change in the world, who has also been through some obstacles and has heard also that little voice to remind him that there's more to his life than what is currently before him. So welcome, Mr. John Stewart Hill to Grew with Portia. He is the founder of the Good Contractors List. So John, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on.
John, it's an honor. I know you had to wait a little bit, but you know, it's always worth the wait, right? John, one of the things that I loved about reading your story is you were in a dark place in 2011. I mean, you were literally at what we call rock bottom. And I'm curious, John, can you share with our audience what was going on in your life where you're like, God, just take me, and here's the towel. What was going on in your life during that time?
Well, I think everyone has this story in some form or fashion. I was raised in church. I heard all those sermons, and I tried to be a good person, tried to live up to what I felt the standard was, and I just found myself at 42, almost going into 43. I'd been divorced 3 times. I never really had a career. I felt like I worked really hard and never got ahead, and I just disappointed everyone. So I kept looking back at that past and going, who's going to miss me? And so,
Mm.
I was living with my girlfriend at the time and was outside smoking a cigarette. And for the 2 months prior to that day, I had just been praying that God would kill me. And that's how I almost daily, it was like, God, will you just take me off this planet? I knew suicide was kind of like the ticket straight down, So
Right.
I'm not gonna do that. I didn't know where I was in my walk with him as a Christian or anything else. You just kind of reach that place where it's just like, what's the point? Why am I even still here? I don't see a future for myself. I don't see any kind of purpose. I look back and all I see is disappointment and just a handful of people that would even show up to my funeral.
Mm.
And so, I was ready to go. I was tired. I didn't know, had no direction, no education. There just wasn't anything that looked hopeful for the future. That's where I was.
And John, I know that you had kind of a breakthrough moment too within that, because once you kind of said, God, take me, God kind of reminded you, right, that you're here for a purpose because you asked God to not leave you as the same person as you were, right? And I'm curious, John, can you share with our audience what was that inner work like for you to not stay that same person who disappointed everybody, who was divorced 3 times, who had no skills, or who, was essentially in other people's eyes, possibly the laughing stock of the world?
Well, that's a great question, and really, it comes down to what you were talking about on that intro, is that still small voice. I knew the voice of God. I'd known him forever, but I was running from him because I just felt like such a disappointment. I felt like I was raised in that if you have a mark on the book, when you get there, you're not going, And so I didn't understand his grace. I didn't understand his mercy. And like I said, I was outside smoking a cigarette when I started coughing, and then next thing you know, I'm coughing up blood, and
Mm,
I end up in the hospital. And so I was in fairly decent shape, I thought, at that time. So it never crossed my mind that anything was going on, other than maybe it was during a freeze and it was so cold that I thought maybe bronchitis, and I just coughed hard enough to cause blood to happen, right? So I go to the hospital. They look at me and they go, "Okay, well, you got fluid in your lungs. Let's get that off of you. It looks like it's pneumonia." And they brought me in and kept me. Sent my girlfriend and my kids had come to visit that day. It had thawed just enough so somebody could come to visit. And they all went back to the house. And later on after that evening, I found myself, I still couldn't breathe well. And the
mm,
doctor who was on the mid shift came in there and just said, "This just doesn't look like pneumonia. I think we're going to do some more tests." And so they did. And when she came back in, and this is like 2 o'clock in the morning, she was just as white as a ghost and said, "I need you to call your family to come back up here." And I'm like, "It's frozen outside. It's dangerous for them to come back up here. What's going on?" And she goes, "No, I really need you to have them come up here. We're going to do some more tests. It's not pneumonia. We believe it's your heart." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well." Anyway, called my family, had them come back up there. But by then were rushing around. I'm like, "What is going on?" And I heard a conversation out in the hall that was a nurse saying to the doctor, "Don't you have to get permission from the director to bring him to ICU?" And she said, "Not in this case. He's tombstone." And that rang into my ear. I was like, "Tombstone? Wait a second. Am I dying?" And all of a sudden,
right.
I was just like, "You know what?" I felt peace. I was like, I'm I have the opportunity now I can repent right before I die and have a clean record. I mean, it was just kind of like, and so I was laying there, and as they came in and got me and started wheeling me to ICU, and on the way to ICU, it was that voice that just overrode everything, and it was a simple question: "John, do you want to stay or do you want to go?" And
Mm,
it was powerful. I wasn't thinking about it. It didn't come from me. And I was like, "Oh wow. I've been praying for 2 months that you'd take me. I never thought about staying." And so but that voice came back and said, "If you decide to stay, I'll be with you and I'll give you a purpose." That was
mm,
all I needed. That was all I needed for the rest of my life, is to know that God is going to be with me and that I had a purpose. At that point, had lost all hope for a purpose. And here he is telling me, even though I have nothing in my past to show a great purpose, here he is telling me that I have a purpose if I decide to stay. And it took about an hour for that cardiologist to come in. And so I really thought through it. And I thought about, how many people would actually show up to my funeral, what I'd be remembered for if I died right now. And so I came back to the Lord and I said, "Okay, I'd like to stay if it's okay with you, but I don't want to be the same guy." And I'd actually come up with three things that I requested of him. One, I
mhm,
wanted to be remembered for doing something good. Two, I wanted to live every day, not just be alive, not just exist. And three, I wanted to touch as many people as possible my remaining time on earth. And as loud as those other voices were, twice as loud I heard, "So be it." And
mm,
so cardiologist makes it in, does the test. I have 100% blockage in one artery, 95% blockage in the other artery. Already had a massive heart attack. I'm still alive. Like nobody's understanding why I'm still alive. It took him an hour to get to even do this. So people are just sitting there going, "What is going on?" And so he was able to put in some stents and fortunately was able to get blood pumping back through. But I have my heart was scarred, between 40 and 50%, my heart was scar tissue. So
mm.
Yeah, it was so that's where I was, and that's the request I made to God at that point. That still small voice that says I have a purpose is what carried me through.
Mm. I mean, and John, I love how you brought up the word tombstone. That should be the title of your book if you don't already have one out. That should be it because, I mean, essentially, you were digging your own grave.
Yeah,
Literally, you were tired, you were done, you felt like you had nothing to show for your life, and that why would God want somebody like me?
yes, exactly. But you know what? When you get to the end of yourself, that's when God can really use you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when you get past that identity that you think you are, and you can actually surrender to what He has planned for you, you can go anywhere. If you're following Him, He can take you places you never ever imagined going.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so when I left that hospital, all I knew was that He was going to be with me and I had a purpose. I was selling coupons. And that's what I was doing for a living, and I came out of here going, I'm going to be the best coupon seller ever to be. I'm going to work as under the Lord. And me and my girlfriend ended up getting married. My wife Cindy now of almost 15 years. This year will be 15 years that we got married, and I'm just so blessed. And actually, I do have a book that I'm just now finished the manuscript on called Heart of a Watchman, and I want to tell
Mm.
you about what that means, because
Yes.
because when God saved me from the heart attack and He promised me that He would be with me and give me a purpose, I didn't know what it was, and so I'm out there selling coupons, and I talked to a contractor one day that wants to share an ad with an electrician that he knew that he trusted and a roofer that he trusted. Now, I used to sell Yellow Pages. Remember the Yellow Page ads in those big old books, those ads in there? I used
Yep.
to sell those for a while. And so I remember thinking back then, there's nobody protecting anybody because those ads could say all the right things, and I'm looking at the person or the people who are saying they're all these things, and they're nothing like it. I would never, there were people that I would never send to my family that looked great in an ad. Now think about this nowadays with AI and all the other things. Anyone can look like anything, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
so and so at that time, it just started dawning on me that what if I could create a website where I separated the good guys from the bad guys, you know? And actually, the only way that this would work is if I personally guaranteed their work. Nobody had ever done that anywhere. I mean, it's the worst business plan ever because you limit who you can sell to and you increase your risk with a guarantee to the homeowner that it's going to be good, right? And so that thought just kept bombarding me, and I went in and I quit my job selling coupons to start a business. Never had a business before, don't know anything about business. All I knew was that I felt like God had given me this desire to protect people. And what if I could bring them together? And so I started a small little thing in Mansfield, Texas called Mansfield Service Connect. And through a series of again, obstacles have moved me faster and further than just thinking I knew what I was doing. And so through obstacles, I ended up going, how do we make this bigger and how do we do this? And I was out there, Portia, with a yellow legal pad explaining someday we're going to have a website. I've never seen, and I've been in sales, I've done sales, and it's hard to get somebody to buy a product that's existing and that's proven. Here I am out here
Right.
talking about something that didn't exist at all. And what happened was contractors started seeing it and they're like, this is different. This is a community you're building here. And if we can all band together and protect people, and there is that guarantee, we're never going to leave you hanging, John. You know, and so up to this point now, my job as has been, what God has put it into my heart to do is protect people from bad contractors. And so I've been that middle guy between homeowners and contractors for now 14 years, that we actually launched it. And so I've always considered myself kind of a protector, the voice of truth between both homeowner and contractor, because it could go both ways, really.
Right.
Homeowners can take advantage of contractors too, and so I've got to be that voice of truth. And here's where it gets really interesting because God has a way of leading us. He has a way of confirming that what He has told us to do is the right way, and that my purpose, he's made it very clear. And do I have a second to tell this story real very
Go ahead.
short?
Yeah.
And probably the crux of the whole message is that I ended up having a heart transplant in 2022. And knowing where I came from, that deathbed experience, not knowing where I'm going, finding purpose in the Good Contractors List, being a protector. Um, some people have said, "Oh, you're a watchman." You've heard that word. You're like a watchman. The man standing on the wall, the guy standing in the gap, and I'm like, "Well, that's pretty cool."
And the movie Watchmen. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this when I ended up meeting the family of my donor. His first name was Christian, which got me like, oh, okay, well, that's something. His last name was Wackel. I'd never heard it before. Wachal. I was like, what? I wonder what that is. So I looked it up, and it's Bohemian for the word watchman. So God not only saved me, gave me a purpose, showed me the purpose in this model that I was building that doesn't exist anywhere else. Nobody guarantees the work of anybody, in marketing. To now I have the heart of a literal Christian watchman. And so he's confirmed things all the way throughout this that there is something greater that at work here. And so that's where what brings us to today. Now we just went from a local company to now expanding nationally, and this vision and this story gets to go along with it because it's not about your skill set. It's not about how great you think you are or how little you think you are. When you surrender to God and you listen to His plan, sometimes it confounds the wise. All those wise businessmen. It's like God can get glory from someone who's weak.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's if there's anything I want anyone to take from this is that you have a purpose. And the day that you realize, you know, while I did decide to stay, you know what I decided that day? I decided to die. I decided to die to myself. All those plans or thoughts or whatever that I thought made me were gone. The only thing left was whatever it is you're going to make me, Lord. That's where I want you to be, where I want to be. And so I'm going to follow you. I'm going to follow your voice. I'm going to have faith that you're going to show me. And he did. And so if you're at that point right now as a listener listening to this and you're like, God, I've almost reached that. I may be at that point where I'm like, I don't see my purpose. I don't see where I belong. Then get out of I and go into he. You know, get into that place where you allow him to just make you whoever you want. Your past is gone. You don't have to live in your past anymore. It's forgiven. It's ready to be moved forward. When you say, I submit my will to do your will, he can do some amazing things.
But it took you surrendering. I think, and that's the thing is, first of all, a lot of us don't listen, right? We don't listen the first time, second time, the third time when we're literally lying rock bottom, we have nothing else to give. That's when we tend to surrender and listen, right?
That's true.
And, John, and what a beautiful story, even, through your heart attacks, right? Through the divorces, you're hitting rock bottom, the questioning, you just surrendered to God's direction, right?
Yeah.
Without, I'm sure that you probably had moments where you wanted to probably turn away, but you stayed the course. And you mentioned that it's through the obstacle that you've gotten more leverage and opportunity than just sitting in the, often stagnant boat of thinking,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And what a beautiful story, John. I'm glad, that you've got a new heart of wisdom, no pun intended, the
Right.
the the additional watchman wings to keep more people safe from, bad contractors and, things of that nature. John, we're going to be wrapping up here soon. And I appreciate so much you sharing your story to our audience because it's so inspirational.
Thank
You almost got me crying because I
you.
know what that's like to be in that dark place where you're like, God, I'm done. Just take me now. Who's gonna remember me? Who's gonna miss me?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And being open to the direction that is gonna come through what we don't know. Right. We just surrender to God's path. Right.
That's right.
So, John, for our audience who's tuning in, if they want to connect with you, right, also get a copy of your book once it's out into the world, and we'll have you
Sure.
back on the show when it's out, and we can do a full Q&A, author Q&A. So please
Oh,
share
that'd be
with our
great.
audience, John, how they can connect with you.
Well, you can go to the website, thegoodcontractorslist.com, and fill out our contact form, whatever. Our staff knows that if anybody is reaching out to me, they will forward it to me. You can even, my email address is john at goodlistmail.com.
Mm,
So if you want to email me directly, that's fine too. And what I really would like from the people who are listening is, this platform is now national. It starts with one contractor in a city. And basically the whole idea is that we build a culture of good contractors that we back with a $25,000 guarantee. Portia,
mm,
that covers just about anything that would ever happen in a home. And but what it does really is keep us honest as that watchman. If we don't have skin in the game, then it just all falls apart. So if you know a good contractor in your market that is honest, that does business right, that knows other great contractors, we can start building a safe contractor community in your community now where homeowners won't have to be taken advantage of. We've done it for 14 years now in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We've covered over $5 billion worth of work, and just a fraction of that has ever had to come out of our pockets. And let me tell you, when you put a logo out there with the halo over it and say we guarantee your work, if somebody does something wrong, we hear about it. But
mm.
we've stood our ground in between that homeowner and contractor, and the process works. We can protect each other. So go to the goodcontractorslist.com, refer a contractor. If you're listening to this and you are a contractor that you feel like I would love to be a part of a community like that, go to the goodcontractorslist.com and go to become a good contractor and see what the requirements are. That's what I would ask.
Excellent. So those of you heard John, you can, email him and we'll have his email and the website listed in the show notes. If you forget, you can also do a Google search because, Google is your friend. Well, everybody, that was Mr. John Stewart Hill from the Good Contractors List that you heard from today on Grew with Portia. And that concludes our conversation for today. And until next time, everybody, peace and hair grease, everyone.